La Masia is, of course, the famed youth academy in Barcelona. I would argue the most famous academy in world football. They've produced so many talents that we'll get onto in this episode and so many still to come. And Arsen, when we speak about La Masia, what is it that you really think they do different than other academies in world football? What is the secret behind their success that they're able to produce just an outrageous amount of talent for the highest level?
The thing that stands out with La Masia is its mythology. Since Johan Cruyff took over in Barcelona, he specified like the academy should be priority, and from then everything changed there. You don't look at the physicality, but more about the technique. The players are developed to play for the first team rather than like for other academies that they make professional footballers rather than those who specialize for the first team to play with possession, to play with technique, understanding football, with the intelligence and so on. I think that was the what makes it more successful for Barcelona's first team, because sometimes you see those La Masia graduates go abroad and not reach the potential they were expected to achieve during their academy levels and so on. But sometimes you also have successes like Grimaldo, who also now exploding in Bundesliga, and many other examples as well.
Yeah, I think this DNA is extremely important because every time a player comes out from the academy of Barcelona, they play always the same system, right? And when they break out to the first team, there's always the same system as they played at the academy level. It doesn't happen in other clubs. Let's take an example of Real Madrid. You can have Mourinho, you have Ancelotti, so different approaches, and the players need to adapt. In Barcelona, they don't need to adapt. They know what they have to play. They just need to adapt to the level, intensity. But this is also a problem, in my opinion, for players who do not make it to the first team. Of course, they need to leave Barcelona and they go to a teams like, let's say, I don't know, Getafe, and it's a completely different football, completely different style, completely different life. So it's very often complicated for guys, for example, Alex Collado. He was a really good player. He doesn't do really well because he struggled a lot to adapt to another system. But yeah, so it's genius, but it can be problematic as well.
Yeah, for me, I think the focus of Barca and the academy, what makes them so distinct is that you really don't see them at all develop for the purpose of selling in the academy. They really develop for the purpose of integrating into the first team. And those who don't integrate into the first team will then obviously move elsewhere, but they're not necessarily seeking out players who then in 2, 3 years maybe have the physical body type and those qualities for the Premier League. They're purely looking for the Barca DNA players. I think that's something where it's very, very unique, something that has been going on for centuries. And like Jacek said, where as in other countries, the academy really needs to adapt itself to the standards of the first team. I would argue in Barca, it's even the first team that needs to adapt to the academy. I mean, you look at coaching hires in the past, they've always been kind of in the DNA of integrating youth players, bringing youth players forward, playing a football that's transitory to the qualities in Barca's academy. And you really see that also highlighted this season where Hansi Flick's integrated so many countless young talents who we'll get onto in just a minute. But Arsen, I mean, is that really a factor where you say Barca needs to develop to be able to kind of sell more academy players for higher sums that don't necessarily make the grade? Or do you say that's something that really comes with the perils of this system of really bringing through players that are pure Barca talents and is not something you really want to give up to just get mere profits in the transfer market?
Well, I think you can achieve both, to be honest. Still developing the talent for the first team, but also develop them and then selling them for profit, like even having like a percentage of future sale or having some kind of rights to them, like as Real Madrid does very well, to be honest. Because I believe that the potential is there for the players, but of course, development and adapting to another style of play can be difficult for them. And that is why I believe, for example, a good loans from Juvenil A to third division to another clubs will be kind of beneficial, because we saw Fermin Lopez, for example, benefit a lot from it. Then he came back from the loan, had a good season at Leganés, and then impressed Xavi and stayed in the first team, and now he's doing very well. Also, there's like Arno Comas, who did well on loan, came back to Barcelona B, did well, but wasn't able to make the first team impression and went to Basel. So if they can develop something like that loan scheme that could benefit both the player, both the club, would be perfect.
Yeah, and I think what Barcelona does, I said it's problematic, like for these players that do not make it to the first team, but by definition, academy needs to produce players for the first team, and this is what Barcelona does. Then you have these examples of Alex Collado who didn't make it and he struggles, but yeah, I think it's the right way. I see nothing wrong with like selling academy players for good money like Real Madrid, but your main thing you need to focus on is to produce players for the first team. And Barcelona does it like they're the best in that.
Yeah, I mean, Jacek, we've spoken in private many times about this. I think one of my biggest qualms with German football at the moment, specifically with Borussia Dortmund, is the fact that you have such a high caliber youth development. You have kind of a constant team who's competing for U19 Bundesliga titles, U17 Bundesliga titles, but you're never finding ways to integrate these players into the first team. I mean, you looked at it, especially this season again, bringing a guy like Tom Rota out on loan, Koulibaly as well, who just had another excellent performance in the Champions League midweek. And when you're in kind of moments like for Barca the past few years, or now for Dortmund as well, where you are under pressure because you're not achieving targets in league and you're not having a manager who can really have that success of a Klopp or a Tuchel in the past, then these young players from the academy can be kind of that shining light for fans to kind of embrace the club in these difficult times and really find meaning in these failed moments. That's something we see a lot of clubs around the world not necessarily get right. And I think that's something that Barca, be it through their own decision making or just from the talent in the academy, have consistently found a good balance to give kind of meaning beyond just the results week to week.
They have the same problem with Atletico. So in Atletico, Cholo Simeone rarely uses academy players. So yeah, there was Hoken, then we have Pablo Barrios. So every 10 years, basically, an academy player. It needs to be more because the Academy of Atletico, of course, it's not of the same quality as La Masia, but there are still plenty of good talents. And like for me, academy players are part of identity, and they're so important for fans. You know, I have many Turkish friends, and they say they don't really care about the academy. They just want quality on the pitch. But every time there is a great academy player like Arda Güler or Semih Kilic, so they're so proud of them. They're much more proud than for a mercenary player who came at the age of 31 from the Premier League. So it's really important, and yeah, being a La Masia fan, La Masia enjoyer like Arsen, it needs to be a great thing. It makes your life much better.